Captain Jake Miller stood on the bridge of the UES Harmony, watching the massive space station grow larger through the viewport. Kepler Prime was a sight to see. The station spun slowly in the darkness, its lights twinkling like stars. Ships from dozens of different worlds docked at its many ports. This was where the galaxy came to talk, to trade, and to make deals. "Approaching final docking sequence, Captain," said Lieutenant Sam Brooks from the navigation console. His voice was steady and professional. Jake nodded and straightened his dress uniform. Today was important. Very important. "Thank you, Lieutenant. Signal the station that we're ready to dock." Jake turned to look at the woman standing beside him. Ambassador Lisa Carter was reviewing her notes one last time. She was small and looked harmless, with kind eyes and a gentle smile. Most aliens found her very easy to talk to. That was the point. "Nervous, Ambassador?" Jake asked quietly. Lisa looked up from her tablet and smiled. "Just reviewing the Zephyrian trade customs one more time. Did you know they consider it rude to make eye contact for more than 3 seconds? Strange how each species has such different ways of showing respect." Jake nodded. He had learned about alien customs during his 20 years of diplomatic missions. Every species was different. Every species had weaknesses. Not that he would ever say that out loud. The ship shuddered slightly as the docking clamps engaged. Through the speakers came the voice of the station controller, speaking in the common galactic language. "UES Harmony, you are cleared for passenger. Transfer. Welcome to Kepler Prime." "Well," said Lisa, gathering her things, "time to go make some friends." She walked toward the airlock, her steps light and confident. Jake watched her go. Lisa was good at her job. Very good. She could make any alien species believe that humans were peaceful, reasonable people who just wanted everyone to get along. Jake waited until she was gone, then turned to his security chief. Commander Alex Thompson was studying a tactical display, his face serious. Alex was tall and broad-shouldered, with scars on his hands that he claimed came from maintenance accidents. Jake knew better. "Everything secure, Commander?" Jake asked. Alex looked up. "Station defense grid is standard civilian setup. Nothing we haven't seen before. Security checkpoints are light. They're more worried about smugglers than anything else." He paused. "The Chitauri brought a full honor guard, though. 12 warriors." "Worried?" Alex almost smiled. "Not particularly. Dr. Williams has some interesting observations about Chitauri nerve clusters. Purely scientific, of course." Jake nodded. Dr. Kate Williams was their xenobiologist. Officially, she studied alien life to help humans understand their new galactic neighbors. Unofficially, she knew exactly where to hit every species they had encountered to drop them in seconds. Her research files were very detailed. "Any word from Earth?" Jake asked quietly. Alex's expression became more serious. "Director Hayes wants regular updates. The mining rights we're negotiating for aren't just about the resources. The Vega sector has strategic value." He lowered his voice even more. "Project Sentinel is moving ahead on schedule." Jake felt a familiar tightness in his chest. Project Sentinel was classified above his level, but he could guess what it involved. Humans had been preparing for something. They had been preparing for 37 years, ever since first contact with the galactic community. "Captain Miller to the conference room," came Lisa's voice over the comm system. "Our guests have arrived." Jake straightened his uniform again and headed for the conference room. It was time to play his part. Time to be the reasonable, diplomatic human that the galaxy expected. The conference room was filled with aliens. The Zephyrian delegate was a tall, crystal-like being that glowed with soft blue light. Its name was something that humans could not pronounce, so they called it Crystal Song Veltar. The Chitauri delegate was more disturbing. High-voiced Zekthara looked like a giant insect with too many eyes and clicking mandibles. The Nereid delegate was the most pleasant to look at. Flow singer Aqualin resembled a graceful sea creature with smooth blue skin and large, intelligent eyes. "Captain Miller," said Lisa with a warm smile, "please meet our distinguished guests." Jake bowed slightly to each delegate, careful to follow the proper customs for each species. The Zephyrian's bow was mathematical, precise angles that showed Respect through geometry. The Chithari expected a firm handshake, though Jake was careful not to squeeze too hard. Chithari bones were surprisingly fragile. The Nereid greeting involved a gentle touch of palms while making eye contact. "It is an honor to meet you all," Jake said in his most diplomatic voice. "Humanity values the friendship of all our galactic neighbors. We hope these negotiations will benefit everyone involved." The aliens responded positively. They had learned to expect this kind of talk from humans. Polite, peaceful, always looking for compromise. It was why they invited humans to mediate their disputes. Humans were not threatening. They were not particularly strong or smart. But they were good at finding solutions that everyone could live with. "The mining rights in the Vega sector are indeed valuable," said Crystal Song Veltar. Its voice sounded like wind chimes. "The mathematical calculations show that all 4 species could benefit from shared extraction operations." "The Hive agrees," clicked Hive voice Zekthara. "Efficiency improves when resources are divided logically." Flowsinger Aqualin nodded gracefully. "The currents of profit should flow to all who contribute to the effort." Jake smiled and nodded along. This was going to be easier than expected. The aliens trusted humans to be fair. They had no idea that every human diplomatic mission for the past 37 years had been carefully gathering information. They did not know that Dr. Williams had detailed files on the biology, psychology, and military capabilities of every species in this room. They did not know that the mining rights were just cover for something much more important. As the formal negotiations began, Jake settled back in his chair and watched. Lisa was already working her magic, asking gentle questions and making helpful suggestions. The aliens were relaxing, opening up, sharing information they would never give to a potential enemy. Jake kept his expression friendly and interested. Inside, he was calculating, counting, measuring. Just like the persistence hunter his ancestors had been, tracking prey across the African plains until it collapsed from exhaustion. The galaxy thought humans were diplomats. They had no idea that diplomacy was just another form of hunting. The negotiations had been going well for 3 hours when Crystal Song Veltar dropped the bomb. The Zephyrian delegate's blue glow flickered as it activated a holographic display. 3-dimensional images filled the air above the conference table, showing star maps and mining equipment. "Before we proceed," the crystal being said in its wind chime voice, "there is a matter we must discuss. Our survey teams have discovered evidence of unauthorized mining operations in the disputed zone." Ambassador Lisa Carter kept her face perfectly calm, but Jake Miller noticed the tiny pause before she spoke. "That is concerning news. Could you provide more details about these operations?" The hologram shifted, showing detailed scans of mining equipment. The machinery was clearly human in design. Hive voice Zekthara's mandibles clicked together rapidly, a sign of agitation among the Chithari. "The equipment signatures match human technology," the insect-like alien said. "The Hive demands explanation for this violation of neutral space agreements." Flow singer Aqualin leaned forward, her large eyes studying the humans carefully. "The emotional currents in this room have shifted. There is more here than meets the eye." Jake felt a familiar sensation in his stomach. Not fear, but the sharp awareness that came when a hunt was about to turn dangerous. Lisa was handling it well, though. She looked appropriately surprised and concerned. "This is very troubling," Lisa said, her voice filled with just the right amount of worry. "I can assure you that no authorized human mining operations are taking place in the disputed zone. If our equipment is there, someone is acting without government approval." She paused as if thinking. "I will need to contact Earth immediately to investigate this matter." Crystal Song Veltar's glow dimmed slightly. "The mathematical probability of unauthorized operations using military-grade equipment is very low. Nevertheless," Lisa said firmly but politely, "I must insist on a recess to consult with my superiors. We take these accusations very seriously." The alien delegates agreed to a 4-hour break. As they filed out of the conference room, Jake noticed how Flowsinger Aqualin kept looking back at them. Nereids were empaths. They could sense emotions and intentions to some degree. That could be a problem. Once the aliens were gone, Lisa activated the room's privacy shields. The electronic hum that filled the air would block any listening devices. She turned to Jake with a look that was no longer diplomatic. "How bad is this?" she asked. Jake was already pulling up secure communications. "I'm contacting Director Hayes. Alex, what's your assessment?" Commander Thompson had been quiet during the negotiations, but now his military training showed. The equipment they found wasn't from any mining operation. That was a survey team from the Sentinel project. They were mapping the asteroid fields and analyzing the local defenses. Dr. Kate Williams looked up from her tablet where she had been reviewing the alien scan data. "The Zephyrians are more thorough than we expected. Their detection equipment is better than our intelligence report suggested." She smiled, but it was not a pleasant expression. "Interesting. We may need to revise our biological assessments of their sensory capabilities." The secure communication link activated, showing the face of Director Ryan Hayes on Earth. He was a thin man with gray hair and cold eyes. Jake had worked with Hayes for 15 years and still found him unsettling. "I saw the preliminary report," Hayes said without greeting. "How much do they know?" "Just that our equipment was there," Lisa replied. "They think it was unauthorized mining. We can probably sell that story if we're careful." Hayes nodded. "Good. The Sentinel project cannot be compromised. Too much depends on it." He looked directly at Jake. "Captain, I'm sending you new orders. The mining rights are no longer the priority. We need to know everything about the alien detection capabilities, especially the Zephyrians." "Understood, sir. There's more," Hayes continued. "Senator Monica Davis is pushing for acceleration of our timeline. Political pressure is building for more aggressive expansion policies. The diplomatic approach may not be sustainable much longer." Jake felt that familiar tightness again. He had been expecting this day for years, the day when humanity would stop pretending to be something they were not. "How long do we have?" Lisa asked. "Unknown. But be prepared for rapid changes in our operational parameters." Hayes paused. "One more thing. Intelligence reports suggest the Vorac hegemony is becoming more active in our border regions. They may be testing our defenses." The communication ended, leaving the 4 humans alone in the shielded room. For a moment, nobody spoke. "The Vorac," Dr. Williams said thoughtfully. "Militaristic culture, honor-based society, they respect strength, above all else." She pulled up files on her tablet. "They've been watching our diplomatic missions and probably think we're weak." "Are they a threat?" Lisa asked. Williams smiled that cold smile again. "Not really. Their biology has several vulnerabilities. Redundant nervous system, but if you know where to hit them, they drop fast. Their armor is impressive but has design flaws. And their tactics are very predictable." Jake stared at her. "Kate, why do you know their tactical patterns?" "I study all the species we encounter, Jake. It's my job." Her expression was innocent, but her eyes were calculating. "Did you know that most alien species evolved from prey animals? They learned cooperation because they were weak individually. Only a few species evolved from predators." Commander Thompson checked his security displays. "The aliens will be back. Soon. What's our story?" Lisa was already shifting back into diplomatic mode. "We stick with unauthorized mining. I'll express appropriate outrage and promise a full investigation. We offer to share the investigation results as a gesture of good faith." "That could work," Jake agreed. "But we need to be more careful. Flow singer Aquilin is reading our emotions. If she gets suspicious..." "Leave the Nereid to me," Williams said. "I have some ideas about how to manage empathic species." The privacy shields deactivated as the alien delegates returned. Jake watched them take their seats around the table. Crystal Song Veltar was still glowing with suspicion. High-voiced Zekthara's compound eyes were focused intently on the humans. Flow singer Aquilin was studying them with obvious concern. "I have contacted Earth," Lisa announced, her voice filled with appropriate anger. "What you have discovered is absolutely unacceptable. An unauthorized mining consortium has been operating without government approval. They will be shut down immediately." The aliens exchanged glances. Jake could see them weighing her words. They wanted to believe her. Humans had always been trustworthy before. The Hive accepts this explanation. Hive voice Zekathara said slowly, but trust requires verification. Of course, Lisa agreed. I will share all investigation results with this committee. Full transparency. Crystal Song Veltar's glow brightened slightly. This approach is mathematically sound. Trust plus verification equals acceptable risk. But flow singer Aqualin was frowning. The emotional currents still feel strange. There are depths here I cannot read. Jake kept his expression neutral, but inside he was thinking like the predator he was. The Nereid was getting too close to the truth. That made her dangerous. Dr. Williams caught his eye and nodded slightly. She understood. The negotiations resumed, but Jake could feel the change in the air. The aliens were more cautious now. They were asking harder questions and watching the human responses more carefully. The hunting was about to get much more difficult. The emergency alert came at 0347 station time. Jake Miller was in his quarters, reviewing tactical reports that officially did not exist, when his communicator screamed to life. The sound was harsh and urgent, designed to wake the dead. Captain Miller to the bridge, emergency priority, came Lieutenant Brooks' voice, tight with barely controlled panic. Jake was moving before he was fully awake, his body responding to years of military training that his diplomatic record claimed he did not have. He reached the bridge in under 2 minutes, still pulling on his uniform jacket. Report, he snapped. Distress signal from New Denver colony, sir, Brooks said, his face pale. They're under attack. The main screen showed the transmission from the human colony world. The image was broken and filled with static, but Jake could see smoke and explosions in the background. A young woman in a torn Colonial Guard uniform was speaking rapidly. This is Colonel Janet Murphy, New Denver Defense Force. We are under heavy attack by Vorac forces. They hit us 3 hours ago with a full battle fleet. Our orbital defenses are gone. They're landing ground forces now. The transmission cut to static, then resumed. We estimate 12 hours before the colony falls. Request immediate assistance. New Denver is dying. The bridge fell silent. Jake stared at the screen, his mind racing. The Vorac hegemony was attacking a human colony. This was what everyone had been preparing for, even if they had not admitted it. Any response from Earth? Fleet? Jake asked. Yes, sir. Admiral Rogers is mobilizing the 3rd Fleet, but they're 6 days out at best. 6 days. New Denver would be ash and bone by then. Jake turned to his communications officer. Signal the conference room. Tell Ambassador Carter we have an emergency. Within minutes, the human delegation was gathered in the secure conference room. Lisa Carter looked composed, but Jake could see the tension in her shoulders. Commander Thompson was already pulling up tactical displays. Dr. Williams was reviewing files. On her tablet, her expression cold and focused. How bad is it? Lisa asked. Bad, Jake replied. He activated the distress signal recording. They all watched in silence as Colonel Murphy described the attack. When it ended, nobody spoke for a long moment. The Vorac always considered us weak, Dr. Williams said finally. Their intelligence reports probably told them New Denver was lightly defended. Easy prey. Are we going to request help from the other species? Lisa asked. This is exactly the kind of situation where our galactic allies should assist us. Jake looked at her carefully. After 20 years of working together, he could read her expressions. She was not really asking about requesting help. She was asking if they were going to keep pretending to be helpless diplomats. Thompson, Jake said quietly. Open a secure channel to Earth. Priority Alpha clearance. Thompson's fingers moved across his console with practiced efficiency. Within moments, Director Hayes appeared on the screen. But he was not alone. Behind him stood a woman in military uniform that Jake recognized from classified briefings. Captain Miller, Hayes said without preamble. I believe you know Admiral Sarah Peterson. Jake nodded. Admiral Peterson commanded the human fleet operations that officially did not exist. She was a small woman with steel-gray hair and eyes like a shark. Captain, the Admiral said, the Vorac attack was expected. We've been monitoring their fleet movements for months. They think humans are weak because of our diplomatic reputation. Are we dropping the pretense? Jake asked. Admiral Peterson smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. Captain, the pretense was always temporary. The Vorac just gave us the excuse we needed. The secure channel shifted to show a tactical display of local space. Jake felt his breath catch. The screen showed dozens of ship signatures that had not been there yesterday. A massive human fleet was decloaking throughout the system. The Harmony is no longer a diplomatic vessel, Admiral Peterson continued. You are now Task Force Commander Miller. Your mission is to coordinate with Admiral Rogers' incoming fleet and eliminate the Vorac threat. Jake felt something shift inside him. For 37 years, humanity had been playing a role, being diplomatic, being reasonable, being harmless. That time was over. Understood, Admiral. What about our current negotiations? Proceed as planned, but with full disclosure. The other species need to understand what humanity really is. The channel closed. Jake turned to his team and saw his own transformation reflected in their faces. Lisa Carter was no longer a gentle diplomat. Her expression was calculating and cold. Thompson was checking weapon systems. Dr. Williams was reviewing her files on alien biology with obvious interest. Well, Jake said quietly, I guess it's time to stop pretending. They returned to the main conference room where the alien delegates were waiting. Crystal Song Veltar was glowing with concern. High voice Zekthara's mandibles were clicking nervously. Flow singer Aqualin was studying the humans with obvious alarm. Ambassador Carter, Crystal Song Veltar said, we detected unusual energy signatures throughout the system. Are you in some kind of danger? Lisa stood at the head of the table, but she was no longer the same person who had been negotiating mining rights. When she spoke, her voice was calm and clear, and absolutely terrifying. Our colony world of New Denver is under attack by the Vorac hegemony. They believe humans are weak and defenseless. She paused, meeting each alien's gaze in turn. They are about to learn otherwise. The main screen activated, showing the tactical display of local space. The alien delegates stared in shock at the fleet signatures appearing throughout the system. Dozens of human warships were decloaking, revealing their true positions. This is impossible, Hive voice Zekthara clicked. Human fleet strength is limited. The Hive has seen the reports. Jake stepped forward. For the first time in 20 years, he dropped his diplomatic mask completely. The reports were wrong. They were always wrong. We made sure of that. Dr. Williams looked up from her tablet. Did you know that most galactic species evolved from prey animals? They learned cooperation because they were individually weak. Humans evolved from persistence hunters. We learned cooperation because it made us better. Predators. Flow singer Aqualin was trembling, her empathic senses overwhelmed. The emotional currents, and they're so cold, so calculating. What are you? Jake walked to the viewport and looked out at the stars. When he turned back to face the aliens, his expression was patient and deadly. We are what we have always been. We are hunters. For 37 years we have been studying you, learning your weaknesses, mapping your defenses, understanding your psychology. He smiled, and it was the smile of a predator who had been patient far too long. We are very good at being patient, but patience has its limits. The aliens sat in stunned silence. On the screen, human fleet elements were moving with precision and speed that defied their diplomatic reputation. The hunters were finally showing their teeth. The Vorac made a mistake, Jake continued. They attacked our people because they thought we were weak. Now they will learn what happens when you threaten a pack of apex predators. Crystal Song Veltar's glow was flickering with fear. What do you want from us? Jake's smile widened. The same thing we have always wanted. Cooperation, trade, peaceful coexistence. His voice dropped to barely above a whisper. But now you understand that cooperation is not our only option. The hunting season had begun. Admiral Pete Rogers arrived at Kepler Prime exactly 18 hours after the distress call from New Denver. His flagship, the UES Retribution, was 3 times larger than any ship the aliens had ever seen humans operate. When it dropped out of hyperspace, followed by 47 other warships, The entire station went silent. Jake Miller stood on the bridge of the Harmony, now designated as Fleet Command Vessel, watching the alien reaction feeds. Crystal Song Veltar was pulsing with mathematical confusion. Hive voice. Zekthara's compound eyes were clicking rapidly as the insect tried to process what it was seeing. Flowsinger Aqualin had gone completely still, overwhelmed by the emotional currents she was detecting. Admiral Rogers requesting permission to come aboard, Lieutenant Brooks reported. Granted, Jake replied. And Brooks? No more diplomatic protocols. Full military honors. When Admiral Rogers walked into the conference room, the change was immediate. He was a big man with gray hair and scars on his face that spoke of real combat experience. He wore a uniform that the aliens had never seen before. Dark blue with silver trim and ribbons that indicated battles they had never heard of. Task Force Commander Miller, the Admiral said, his voice carrying the authority of someone used to being obeyed. Status report. New Denver is holding, barely. The Vorac ground assault was repelled 6 hours ago, but their orbital blockade is still in place. Colonel Murphy reports they can hold for another day, maybe 2. Admiral Rogers nodded and turned to face the alien delegates. They shrank back from his gaze. I am Admiral Pete Rogers, commanding officer of the 3rd Human Fleet. You have been dealing with our diplomatic corps for 37 years. Now you meet our military. Dr. Kate Williams stepped forward, her tablet displaying tactical information. Admiral, our guests are curious about human capabilities. Perhaps we should show them what we learned from studying their species. Rogers smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. Excellent idea, Doctor. Begin with the Vorac. The main screen activated, showing the battle for New Denver in real time. But this was not the desperate fight the aliens expected to see. Human forces were systematically dismantling the Vorac attack with surgical precision. The Vorac attack. Our colony with standard orbital bombardment, Dr. Williams explained, her voice clinical and cold. They followed textbook assault patterns. Unfortunately for them, we wrote better textbooks. The screen showed human fighters moving in patterns that defied everything the aliens knew about human military doctrine. They were not fighting defensively. They were hunting. Vorac psychology is based on honor and direct combat, Williams continued. They expect their enemies to meet them head-on. Instead, we attack their supply lines, their communications, their weak points. We studied their biology for 15 years. We know exactly where they are vulnerable. Commander Alex Thompson was monitoring multiple displays. Admiral, the Vorac fleet is trying to retreat from New Denver. They're requesting terms for surrender. Denied, Admiral Rogers said without hesitation. They attacked our people. They made this a pack hunt. Now they face the consequences. Jake watched the tactical display with growing amazement. The human fleet was not just winning the battle. They were completely dominating it. Vorac ships that had seemed invincible were being torn apart by human weapons that had appeared from nowhere. How? Crystal Song Veltar asked, its voice barely audible. The mathematical calculations were wrong. Human fleet strength was assessed at minimal levels. The calculations were based on what we let you see, Jake replied. Every diplomatic mission, every cultural exchange, every trade negotiation was intelligence gathering. We have been preparing for this day since we first met you. Ambassador Lisa Carter, who had been silent throughout the briefing, finally spoke, but her voice was no longer diplomatic. It was the voice of someone who had been pretending to be harmless for far too long. Did you think we were really just peaceful traders? Did you think a species that conquered an entire planet was naturally gentle? She laughed, and the sound made the aliens flinch. We are persistence hunters. We never stop. We never give up. And we never forget. The screen shifted to show the broader tactical situation. Human forces were not just fighting at New Denver. They were active throughout Vorac space, striking at military installations, supply depots, and command centers with impossible precision. Every Vorac facility, every ship, every important target has been mapped and studied. Dr. Williams explained. Our diplomatic missions visited their worlds for years. We know their defenses better than they do. Hive voice Zekthara was clicking frantically. The Hive demands to know human intentions. Are you planning to conquer Vorac space? Admiral Rogers turned to face the insect directly. We do not conquer, we eliminate threats. The Vorac attacked our people. They declared themselves our enemies. Now they will learn what it means to be hunted by humans. Flow singer Aqua Lynn suddenly stood up, her body trembling. The emotional currents are wrong. This is not anger, this is not revenge, this is... She paused, searching for words. This is joy. You enjoy this? Jake met her gaze calmly. We are what we are. We did not choose to be apex predators. Evolution made that choice for us. But we have learned to control our nature. We prefer cooperation. It is more efficient than war. But when someone attacks our pack, Admiral Rogers added, we remember what we really are. The tactical display updated again. The Vorac fleet at New Denver was gone. Completely destroyed. Not a single human ship had been lost. Impossible, Crystal Song Veltar whispered. The Vorac military was rated as superior to human capabilities. Rated by who? Dr. Williams asked. By intelligence agencies that only saw what we wanted them to see. We have been pretending to be weak for 37 years. Every alien species in the galaxy has underestimated us because we acted like prey animals. Commander Thompson looked up from his displays. Admiral, we're receiving surrender offers from 12 different Vorac worlds. They're asking for terms. What terms? Admiral Rogers asked. Complete withdrawal from all human space. War reparations. Hostage exchange. Thompson paused. And they're offering to provide intelligence on other species that might threaten humanity. The room fell silent. The alien delegates stared at the humans with growing horror. They were beginning to understand that the Vorac defeat was not just a military victory, it was a message. The Vorac learned their lesson quickly, Jake observed. Smart species adapt when they encounter a superior predator. Crystal Song Veltar's glow was dim with fear. What do you want from us? From the galaxy? Lisa Carter stood up and walked to the viewport. Outside, human warships were moving in perfect formation. Their weapons powered but not aimed at the station. Yet, we want what we have always wanted, she said softly. Peaceful cooperation, fair trade, mutual respect. She turned back to face the aliens. But now you understand that these things are not signs of weakness. They are choices we make because we are strong enough to choose. Admiral Rogers activated his communication system. All human diplomatic missions throughout the galaxy are receiving new instructions. The age of pretending to be harmless is over. From now on, our neighbors will know exactly what they are dealing with. The screen showed communications being sent to every human embassy, every trade mission, every cultural exchange. The message was simple. The masks were coming off. We are still the same humans you have known for 37 years, Jake said, to the alien delegates. We still want peace. We still prefer cooperation. But now you know that we do not need these things. We choose them. Flow singer Aqua Lynn was crying, her large eyes filled with tears. The emotional currents throughout the galaxy are changing. Every species is feeling the fear. They all know now. Good, Admiral Rogers said simply. Fear keeps the peace better than treaties. The hunt was over. The pack had shown its teeth. Now came the more difficult task of building a new galactic order, one where everyone understood exactly who the apex predators really were. And in the depths of space, other species were learning the same lesson the Vorac had learned. When you attack a human pack, you do not just fight soldiers. You fight the patient, calculating fury of evolution's most successful predators. The galaxy would never be the same. 3 months after the Vorac War ended, Jake Miller found himself back in a conference room. But this was not the same conference room on Kepler Prime. This was the Grand Assembly Hall on Central Station, the political heart of the galaxy. And he was not the same man who had played diplomat while secretly gathering intelligence. The hall was massive, designed to hold representatives from 200 different species. Today it was packed. Every major government in the galaxy had sent their highest officials. They all wanted to see the humans who had destroyed the Vorac hegemony in less than 3 weeks. Jake sat at the head table wearing his new uniform. Task: Force Commander had become Fleet Admiral, and his dress blues carried ribbons from battles that were no longer classified. Beside him sat Ambassador Lisa Carter, but her title had changed too. She was now Director of Interspecies Relations, and her job was no longer to hide human capabilities. The other humans at the table were equally transformed. Dr. Kate Williams now wore the uniform of military intelligence, her research officially recognized for what it had always been. Commander Alex Thompson had been promoted to general and commanded the new Galactic Security Division. At the far end of the table sat Director Ryan Hayes, no longer hiding behind diplomatic cover. His title was now Secretary of Human Expansion, and his job was to manage humanity's rapid growth throughout the galaxy. The assembled aliens watched the humans with a mixture of fear and fascination. Crystal Song Veltar was there, representing the Zephyrian Collective. Its glow was subdued, mathematical calculations running constantly behind its crystalline features. High-voiced Zekthara sat with a full honor guard, though everyone knew the Chithari warriors were more for show than protection. The Nereids had sent Flowsinger Aquilin, though she looked pale and tired from months of dealing with the galaxy's emotional chaos. The Galactic Council recognizes Fleet Admiral Jake Miller of the Human Federation, announced the speaker, an elderly member of the Altarian species who had been chosen for neutrality. Jake stood slowly, his movements calm and deliberate. When he spoke, his voice carried clearly through the vast hall. 3 months ago, the Vorac hegemony made a mistake. They attacked human civilians because they believed we were weak. They thought our diplomatic nature meant we could not fight. He paused, looking around the room at hundreds of alien faces. They were wrong. A low murmur ran through the assembly. Everyone knew what had happened to the Vorac. Their empire had been dismantled piece by piece, their military destroyed, their government restructured under human oversight. It had taken 19 days. For 37 years, humanity has been a member of this galactic community. We have traded fairly, negotiated honestly, and kept our agreements. We have been good neighbors. Jake's expression remained calm, but his eyes were hard. But some of you made a dangerous assumption. You thought our cooperation meant we were harmless? Crystal Song Veltar rose from its seat. The mathematical evidence suggested human military capabilities were limited. How were we to know otherwise? Because you did not ask the right questions, Dr. Williams replied, standing beside Jake. You studied our diplomatic missions and assumed they represented our full capabilities. You never wondered why a species that conquered an entire planet would be naturally peaceful. Director Hayes activated a holographic display that filled the center of the hall. It showed human space as it existed now, 3 months after the war. The expansion was dramatic. Territories that had been neutral or disputed were now under human control. Trade routes that had been managed by alien corporations now flew human flags. The Vorac defeat sent a message throughout the galaxy, Hayes explained. 17 different species have requested defensive alliances with humanity. 23 others have offered preferential trade agreements. 4 minor empires have asked to join the Human Federation directly, and 12 species have attempted to attack human positions, General Thompson added with a cold smile. Those conflicts lasted an average of 4 days each. Flowsinger Aquilin stood shakily. The emotional currents throughout the galaxy have changed completely. Fear is the dominant feeling now. Fear of humans. Lisa Carter looked at the Nereid with something that might have been sympathy. We do not want to be feared. We prefer to be respected, but fear is better than being underestimated. An alien in the back of the hall called out, its voice translator rendering the words in harsh tones. What do you want from us? What are your terms for coexistence? Jake looked toward the voice, then addressed the entire assembly. We want the same thing we have always wanted. Peaceful cooperation, fair trade, mutual respect. He paused, letting his words sink in. The difference is that now you understand these are choices we make, not weaknesses you can exploit. The speaker called for formal responses from the major powers. One by one, the representatives stood to acknowledge the new reality. The Zephyrian Collective offered scientific cooperation. The Chithari Hive proposed military training exchanges. The Nereid schools requested cultural understanding programs. Each offer was carefully worded to show respect for human capabilities while maintaining some dignity for the offering species. Jake noticed that none of them mentioned the mining rights. That had started this whole situation. The Vega sector was now unquestionably human territory. The Human Federation accepts these proposals, Jake replied formally. We look forward to continued cooperation with our galactic neighbors, but as the formal session ended and the aliens began filing out, Jake caught the whispered conversations. They were not just discussing trade agreements or scientific exchanges. They were sharing intelligence about human capabilities, warning each other about what they had learned. Crystal Song Veltar approached the human table, its glow nervous. Admiral Miller, the collective has a question. The mathematical models suggest human expansion will continue. How far do you intend to grow? Jake considered the question carefully. It was really asking how much of the galaxy humanity planned to control. We will expand as far as we need to ensure the security of human space, he replied. We will take what we require for our people to prosper, and we will defend what is ours against any threat. And if other species object to this expansion? Jake's smile was patient and terrifying. Then they can learn the same lesson the Vorac learned. We are very good teachers. After the aliens left, the human delegation remained in the hall. They sat in comfortable silence for several minutes, processing what they had accomplished. Do you think they understand? Lisa asked finally. They understand that we are dangerous, Dr. Williams replied. Whether they understand that we are still the same humans who prefer cooperation remains to be seen. Hayes was reviewing reports on his tablet. Intelligence suggests that several species are forming defensive alliances against us. Nothing serious yet, but they are preparing for the possibility that we might become aggressive. Good, Jake said simply. Prepared neighbors are peaceful neighbors. General Thompson looked around the empty hall. 37 years of pretending to be harmless. Was it worth it? Jake stood and walked to the massive viewport that showed the stars beyond Central Station. Human ships moved among the traffic, no longer hiding their capabilities. They were still polite, still diplomatic, still willing to negotiate. But now everyone knew what lay beneath the civilized surface. We learned everything we needed to know about our neighbors. We built relationships based on trust and mutual benefit. We established ourselves as reasonable people who could be trusted to keep agreements. He turned back to face his team, and when someone finally forced us to show our true nature, everyone understood that our reasonableness was a choice, not a limitation. Lisa joined him at the viewport. The galaxy will never see us the same way again. No, Jake agreed. They will see us as we really are. Apex predators who choose to be civilized because it serves our purposes better than savagery. As they prepared to leave Central Station, Jake reflected on the changes that 3 months had brought. Humanity was no longer the harmless newcomer that needed protection from galactic politics. They were the dominant power, the species that others approached with careful respect and barely concealed fear. But they were still the same humans who preferred cooperation to conflict, trade to warfare, and negotiation to domination. The only difference was that now the galaxy understood these preferences came from strength, not weakness. The age of pretending was over. The age of honest diplomacy had begun, and throughout the galaxy, intelligent species were learning to be very polite to their human neighbors, because everyone now knew what happened to those who were not.